Welcome back. I'm Logan, your host for the Daily Bible Reading Podcast, where we are journeying through the Bible chronologically, taking it one day at a time. It's day number 94, and today we are looking at Judges chapter 13 to 15. I'm glad that you're here with me. I'm excited to get started, but before we do, let's pray and ask that God would open up His Word to us today and shape and mold our hearts into the image of His Son. Today's prayer comes from the Valley of Vision, a collection of Puritan prayers and devotions by Arthur Bennett. This prayer is entitled, Desires. O Thou that hearest prayer, teach me to pray. I confess that in religious exercises, the language of my lips and the feelings of my heart have not always agreed. That I have frequently taken carelessly upon my tongue a name never pronounced above, without reverence and humility. That I've often desired things which would have injured me. That I have depreciated some of my chief mercies. That I have erred both on the side of my hopes and also of my fears, that I am unfit to choose for myself, for it is not in me to direct my steps. Let thy Spirit help my infirmities, for I know not what to pray for as I ought. Let Him produce in me wise desires, by which I may ask right things. Then I shall know thou hearest me. May I never be importunate for temporal blessings, but always refer them to thy fatherly goodness, for thou knowest what I need before I ask. May I never think I prosper unless my soul prospers, or that I am rich unless I am rich toward thee, or that I am wise unless wise unto salvation. May I seek first thy kingdom and its righteousness. May I value things in relation to eternity. May my spiritual warfare be my chief solicitude. May I be poor, afflicted, despised, and have thy blessing, rather than be successful in enterprise, or have more than my heart can wish, or be admired by my fellow men, if thereby these things make me forget thee. May I regard the world as dreams, lies, vanities, vexation of spirit, and desire to depart from it. And may I seek my happiness in thy favor, thy image, thy presence, and thy service. Amen. All right, I've got my coffee here. I've got my English Standard Version open to Judges chapter 13. Let's get started. Chapter 13. And the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord gave them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. There was a certain man of Zorah, of the tribe of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, Behold, you are barren and have not borne children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Therefore be careful, and drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean, for behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. Then the woman came and told her husband, A man of God came to me, and his appearance was like the appearance of the angel of God, very awesome. I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. But he said to me, Behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. So then drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean, for the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb to the day of his death. Then Manoah prayed to the Lord, and said, O Lord, please let the man of God, whom you sent, come again to us, and teach us what we are to do with the child who will be born. And God listened to the voice of Manoah. And the angel of God came again to the woman as she sat in the field. But Manoah her husband was not with her. So the woman ran quickly and told her husband, Behold, the man who came to me the other day has appeared to me. And Manoah arose and went after his wife, and came to the man and to him, Are you the man who spoke to this woman? And he said, I am. And Manoah said, Now when your words come true, what is to be the child's manner of life, and what is his mission? The angel of the Lord said to Manoah, Of all that I said to the woman, let her be careful. She may not eat of anything that comes from the vine, neither let her drink wine or strong drink, or eat any unclean thing. All that I commanded her, let her observe. Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, Please, let us detain you and prepare a young goat for you. And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, If you detain me, I will not eat of your food. But if you prepare a burnt offering, then offer it to the Lord. For Manoah did not know that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to the angel of the Lord, What is your name, so that when your words come true we may honor you? And the angel of the Lord said to him, Why do you ask my name, seeing it is wonderful? So Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering, and offered it on the rock to the Lord, to the one who works wonders. And Manoah and his wife were watching. And when the flame went up toward heaven from the altar, the angel of the Lord went up in the flame of the altar. Now Manoah and his wife were watching, and they fell on their faces to the ground. The angel of the Lord appeared no more to Manoah and to his wife. Then Manoah knew that he was the angel of the Lord. And Manoah said to his wife, We shall surely die, for we have seen God. But his wife said to him, If the Lord had meant to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering at our hands, or shown us all these things, or now announced to us such things as these. And the woman bore a son, and called his name Samson. And the young man grew, and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him in Mahane Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. Chapter 14. Samson went down to Timnah, and at Timnah he saw one of the daughters of the Philistines. Then he came up and told his father and mother, I saw one of the daughters of the Philistines at Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. But his father and mother said to him, Is there not a woman among the daughters of your relatives, or among all our people, that you must go and take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me, for she is right in my eyes. His father and mother did not know that it was from the Lord, for he was seeking an opportunity against the Philistines. At that time, the Philistines ruled over Israel. Then Samson went down with his father and mother to Timnah, and they came to the vineyards of Timnah. And behold, a young lion came toward him roaring. Then the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and although he had nothing in his hand, he tore the lion in pieces as one tears a young goat. But he did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and she was right in Samson's eyes. After some days he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, there was a swarm of bees in the body of the lion, and honey. He scraped it out into his hands, and went on, eating as he went. And he came to his father and mother, and gave some to them, and they ate. But he did not tell them that he had scraped the honey from the carcass of the lion. His father went down to the woman, and Samson prepared a feast there, for so the young men used to do. As soon as the people saw him, they brought 30 companions to be with him. And Samson said to them, Let me now put a riddle to you. If you can tell me what it is within the 7 days of the feast, and find it out, then I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. But if you cannot tell me what it is, then you shall give me 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. And they said to him, Put your riddle, that we may hear it. And he said to them, Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. And in 3 days they could not solve the riddle. On the 4th day they said to Samson's wife, Entice your husband to tell us what the riddle is, lest we burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you invited us here to impoverish us? And Samson's wife wept over him and said, You only hate me. You do not love me, You have put a riddle to my people, and you have not told me what it is." And he said to her, "Behold, I have not told my father nor mother. Shall I tell you?" She wept before him the 7 days that the feast lasted, and on the 7th day he told her, because she pressed him hard. Then she told the riddle to her people, and the men of the city said to him on the 7th day, before the sun went down, "What is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion?" And he said to them, "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle." And the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon, and struck down 30 men of the town, and took their spoil, and gave the garments to those who had told the riddle. In hot anger he went back to his father's house, and Samson's wife was given to his companion, who had been his best man. Chapter 15. After some days, at the time of wheat harvest, Samson went to visit his wife with a young goat, and he said, "I will go in to my wife in the chamber." But her father would not allow him to go in, and her father said, "I really thought that you utterly hated her, so I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister more beautiful than she? Please take her instead." And Samson said to him, "This time I shall be innocent in regard to the Philistines, when I do them harm." So Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and took torches, and he turned them tail to tail, and put a torch between each pair of tails. And when he had set fire to the torches, he let the foxes go into the standing grain of the Philistines, and set fire to the stacked grain and the standing grain, as well as the olive orchards. Then the Philistines said, "Who has done this?" And they said, "Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife and given her to his companion." And the Philistines came up and burned her and her father with fire. And Samson said to them, "If this is what you do, I swear I will be avenged on you, and after that I will quit." And he struck them hip and thigh with a great blow, and went down and stayed in the cleft of the rock of Etam. Then the Philistines came up and encamped in Judah, and made a raid on Lehi. And the men of Judah said, "Why have you come up against us?" They said, "We have come up to bind Samson, to do to him as he did to us." Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock of Etam, and said to Samson, "Do you not know that the Philistines are rulers over us? What then is this that you have done to us?" And he said to them, "As they did to me, so I have done to them." And they said to him, "We have come down to bind you, that we may give you into the hands of the Philistines." And Samson said to them, "Swear to me that you will not attack me yourselves." They said to him, "No, we will only bind you and give you into their hands. We will surely not kill you." So they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. When he came to Lehi, the Philistines came shouting to meet him. Then the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and the ropes that were on his arms became as flax that has caught fire, and his bonds melted off his hands. And he found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, and put out his hand and took it, and with it he struck 1,000 men. And Samson said, "With the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of a donkey, I have struck down 1,000 men." As soon as he had finished speaking, he threw away the jawbone out of his hand, and that place was called Ramoth Lehi. And he was very thirsty, and he called upon the Lord and said, "You have granted this great salvation by the hand of your servant. And shall I now die of thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised?" And God split open the hollow place that is at Lehi, and water came out from it. And when he drank, his spirit returned, and he revived. Therefore the name of it was called En Hakkore. It is at Lehi to this day. And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. You know, this isn't the first podcast I've ever made. I've done several others with friends in the past, going all the way back to pretty much the beginning of podcasting. And normally it's a very arduous and time-consuming process of recording and editing and mixing and finding music that you can use on the podcast and sound clips and things like that to try to put it all together to make a nice finished product. But Anchor.fm makes that all so much easier. I use Anchor. It is free, and the creation tools that they allow me to use to record and edit the podcast right from my phone or right on my computer, right through my web browser, just make it absolutely effortless. This is an amazing product that they offer, absolutely free. And so if you're looking to start a podcast, looking to get anything going, if you've got a great idea, I encourage you, get out there and do it with Anchor.fm. My favorite part about the entire process with Anchor is that they will actually distribute the podcast for me. So whenever I'm done, whenever I'm all finished recording, I just hit done and I tell them when I want it to be published. And it magically goes out to places like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and everywhere else that you guys listen to. So it's magical. And you can even make money from your podcast when you get listeners. Folks start listening to your podcast. As many people as are listening to the ads that you record, like this one, you end up getting paid for those things. And so it's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, which I would encourage anybody to do, you've got a voice. We want your voice to be heard. Go and download the free Anchor app now, or go to Anchor.fm to get started. I apologize for the diminished quality of the audio here for this next minute or so. Had a difficulty with my mic setup, but it'll be fixed by the end of the episode. As we get here to the story of Samson in our reading today, we see that the children of Israel are back to their old habits, their old way of doing things, doing what is evil in the sight of the Lord. And so God gives them over to the Philistines. For 40 years, they are under the control of the Philistines until God raises up Samson. And here in this cycle, we don't actually see the people of God crying out to him. Rather, it just looks as though he is stepping in to save them from themselves, regardless of their desire for it. They aren't asking for this. They don't look for Samson, but God is providing a judge for them, whether they want one or not. As we read in his story, we see that the angel of the Lord comes to his mother and father, and there the angel of the Lord, as I've said before, being Jesus pre-incarnate, tells them that he is going to save or begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. In this, I see some significant foreshadowing of Jesus, of the angel appearing to Mary in a dream and saying that she was going to bear a child and that that child would save his people from their sins. This should look familiar to us, having read the New Testament, because I think a lot of the imagery that is here is being repeated so that we see that God is working in the same way that he has in the past. But notice that Samson is called to be a Nazirite. We spoke about this back when the laws for Nazirites were mentioned in the book of Numbers, I think chapter 5. And in that section, we see that this is a particular vow which is given to say that I'm not going to eat or drink anything that comes from the vine. I'm not going to cut my hair or shave my beard. I'm only going to focus on God for this period of time. And it's usually a shorter period, but we see several examples of those who have been labeled as Nazirites for their entire lives. John the Baptist is the first one that comes to mind, but Samson is probably the next in line there. And they are Nazirites, not Nazarenes. Okay, Nazarene is someone who comes from Nazareth. That would be the town where Jesus called his home for most of his life, the town of Nazareth. So he was a Nazarene, not a Nazirite. John the Baptist was a Nazirite. Remember, he was out on the Jordan, dressed in his sackcloth, eating his locusts and wild honey, all that kind of stuff. And again, That wild honey is a little reference, I think, back here to Samson as we see in our story today. But as we look at the story of Samson, we don't see a real redemptive character here. He's kind of impetuous and runs after things very quickly. But we see that the Spirit of the Lord is upon him, that as he looks at this Philistine woman and wants her for himself, we see the scripture says that that was of the Lord, because God was seeking an opportunity against the Philistines. During this season of the Judges, we know that people are doing whatever they see to be right in their own eyes. And so here we see Samson doing that very thing, going after the thing that he sees and wants. And God uses that. That is surely sin, but God uses it for his glory. Also, we see that Samson has great strength, and God uses that as well. And he uses him to tear open this lion, which I think is a symbol. If we look at the image of the lion and the honey, this isn't anywhere in the text, but I think there's a bit of a story here, a bit of an allegory that says that the lion is the destroyer, is the dangerous thing that is there in the land of Canaan that must be killed. That's the Canaanites, that's the Philistines, that's the sin in our own heart. And that inside, after it is killed, comes something sweet. And the people of Israel are foreshadowed to be like the honey in the carcass of the lion, that they will spring forward and bring something sweet out of the death of these people. That's again, not in the text, but it's an interesting way to look at this story and add another layer of meaning to it, that it's not just a riddle at a wedding. But we see here Samson's weakness for women, that she is able to get on his good side and end up getting the answer to the riddle out of him. And then after his wife has been given to another man, he comes back and slays even more with the jawbone of an ox after he burns down their crops. So really, this one impetuous, very sensuous and physical man is almost single-handedly taking out the Philistines in a large way. And we don't get through the full story. We don't even get to Samson and Delilah today. We'll get to that tomorrow. But in this, I want you to see these few things, and we'll see them come to play tomorrow. We see Samson's sight. Remember, people do what is evil in the sight of the Lord. We see Samson's strength. And we also see Samson's sin. Okay, so 3 S's: his sight, his strength, and his sin. All of these are going to come to play tomorrow as we are looking at the end of this story. But for today, I want to leave you with just this simple idea that there's a difference between faith in God and being faithful to God. Samson, we know, has faith in God. And we know this from the inspired author of the book of Hebrews. Samson is listed there in Hebrews 11, along with Jephthah that we saw yesterday, in this hall of faith, along with David and with Samuel and with the prophets. And so he has faith in God. Yet very clearly from his story, we see that he is not always faithful to God. Sometimes I think when we read the Old Testament, we forget the path of salvation. We forget the way that God saves people. God does not save through obedience to the law. He never has, and he never will, because we cannot obtain that obedience. We can't do it. Abraham didn't do it. Moses didn't do it. Joshua didn't do it. No one in the Old Testament was able to obey the law and keep these laws, to be completely faithful to Yahweh. But many of them had faith in Yahweh. And when we get to the New Testament, we very gladly and graciously see that salvation is not by obedience to or faithfulness to the covenant. Rather, it is by God's faithful covenant love towards us, and it is by our faith in his promises. It's an amazing truth that we are saved by grace through faith, not by grace through our faithfulness. And so Samson can certainly be listed as being a man of faith. He believed in the Lord. He held this Nazirite vow as long as he could until Delilah cuts off his hair tomorrow. He referred back to God. He spoke to God. He requested water from the rock and got water out of a rock like Moses did. He had faith in God. Yes, he was strong and impetuous and flew off the handle and did brash things. But God used him because he had faith in him and he had his Spirit. Thank God that you are not saved through your faithfulness. You are saved in spite of your faithlessness. Because of your faith in Jesus, God looks past all of our faithlessness and he saves us regardless in his grace. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this has been encouraging to you. If so, please let me know by visiting the links that you find under the Connect With Us section in the show notes. I'm a simple man and I could use the encouragement. If you've been blessed enough that you would like to support the podcast, I would greatly appreciate that as well. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/DBR podcast to make either a one-time gift or to sign up for a monthly recurring membership gift. Until tomorrow, keep reading and keep worshiping.